You're listening to the Brenton on Tour podcast.
That's right.
He travels the world running concerts and searches for the best coffee, people, and amazing stories so you don't have to.
Pay attention, you're going to learn something for a change.
This is a show about all of those things and much, much more.
You're blowing my mind right now. I hope someone's recording this.
So settle in, pour a cup of amazing coffee. He's a coffee snob, by the way. Crank that ghetto blaster and enjoy the 150,000 ranked podcast in the land.
Fake laugh, hiding real pain.
I think that's an exaggeration. It's the Brenton on Tour podcast.
Any question?
Here's BD.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Brenton on Tour podcast for another week on the Dean Blundell Network. It is the third week of January. I've been doing a series about making it, everyone's sort of definition of making it, what it means to them, and sort of the different journeys that we've been doing along the way. More of those to come. But a subject to me that's extremely important, and it's been important over the last 3 years to me, has been alcohol. I've just celebrated. Is it celebration? Is that the word I'm looking for? I just crossed over 3 years of not drinking. Sobriety, is that what it's called? I'm sober now. I guess that's it. And it's been quite a journey. And we're in the third week of January now. Not to timestamp this too badly, but we're in the third week of January, and this is traditionally the time where people have made New Year's resolutions as far as, quitting smoking or quitting drinking or going to the gym, getting healthy or whatever. The world is crumbling and everyone's very, very depressed already. And then you tag on Blue Monday, which was yesterday, which is traditionally the most depressing day of the year. And it can make for a lot of things, a lot of people to give up those New Year's resolutions and all the rest of it, including drinking. So it's important to me to kind of talk about it this week, because this is the time to either push through or this is the time where people stop. And I wanted to bring along a buddy of mine and the host of this network, and who's given me such a great platform to have two shows on, this one and the Kids on the Escalator with my buddy Chris, who is sober and I think got sober just before I did, about a year before I did, and has been a real big help on my journey. And I just thought, let's dive in a little bit. So welcome, Mr. Dean Blundell. How are you, sir?
Hey, buddy. I'm good. Just a couple guys don't drink doing a podcast. Should be exciting.
Yeah, you don't drink. Like, what are you? Like, what are you? What are you? Like, I don't.
You get
understand.
that too. You get that the whole.
Well, I was on.
Possible.
It was funny because I was on with Bonzi live last night, and we were talking, and he's 17 days in, and we were talking and joking a little bit about it, because no one ever really says that's great when you say that you quit drinking. Everyone says, really?
No, they look at you like this. They like this sort of. And then they go, oh, good.
Yeah. And I'm like, I don't do blow and heroin either. And people go, oh, that's good. People go,
way to go for that one.
That's really good. Like if you say, I don't do cocaine anymore and I don't do heroin, people are like, that's really, really, that's great for your family. And it's really, really great. And then you tell them you don't drink, and people are like, oh, we're not inviting that guy out. Like that.
Yeah. What a fucking bummer at a party. That guy. Sorry, I'm bringing my camera closer.
The sober guy. And before I decided to take this sort of journey, I selfishly never, I don't want to say pay attention to the sober guys. I just didn't notice them as much. It was sort of like you're out partying all the time and you're out doing stuff, or you're at, I'm running shows or whatever. It wasn't partying in bars was my thing. It was more after the show and having a few, and then you go out and you go out and you go out. And as I would tour and sort of find sober people, I was myself curious, like, why are they sober? And I was guilty of it myself until I had to read about it. Until I went through.
Are they enjoying themselves? Like, what are they doing?
How can they can't be enjoying themselves. They can't be doing
themselves.
They hate them. Yeah. So I did an article for your fantastic website, which is deanblundell.com.
Our fantastic
website. Sure, our fantastic website, but we'll go with the namesake, with deanblundell.com, where you can find a billion pods of amazingness. I did an article around the 5th. It's timestamped there. January 5th was New Year's Eve, your last drink. And by all accounts, I got a lot of feedback on it. I had a lot of people DM me. People are afraid to comment on your things, but they will DM you about this and furthering along the stigma about alcohol, which is like, oh, I don't want to tell anyone I've got a problem, but hey, thanks for writing the article, which happens, and we've all.
Did you get a lot of that?
through it. I did. I really did, actually.
Yeah.
And then I had some people that were like, hey, how did you do it? And all the rest of it. So we've had some sober talks. We haven't really chatted too much about it on this platform. But I thought it was important just given the time frame. And yesterday was literally the most depressing day of the year for a lot of people. Their bills come in. It's the Christmas bills. It's the end of the, they're not seeing any gym gains. They're out. They're not,
staring down the barrel of 2 solid cold fucking months again, up in your, yeah, I get it. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Watching watching their premier shovel out things and not pay attention to their, So
while we're dying and get sick. Yeah, dude, there's lots of reasons, right, to be upset right now. There's
tons.
Yeah.
There's
I
tons.
don't buy any of them. Like, that's the thing that's the difference. Like, the difference between me today and me 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Is like, I don't look at life like that anymore. I can't. It's a funny journey. I think, we talked about it, or you talked about it in your intro, and I appreciate you having me on because this is my favorite thing to talk about. It is getting better at life. It's not about, to me, it's not about whether or not you're an alcoholic. To me, it's not about whether or not you drink too much or you do too much blow or coke or pot or what. They're all coping mechanisms to me, right? All of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To me, it's about duplicity and about the victim class. Like, I've had 4 years, and just to kind of, regroup a little bit. I've had 4 years of not drinking. Actually, 4.5 now. It's kind of weird. I'm stuck on 4 for some reason because it doesn't matter anymore. Like, it's one of those things where you're like, whatever. But 4.5 years, and I feel I look at life so differently today because of a number of things, and it started with not drinking. So let's back that up. What does that mean? People drink for a number of reasons, right? People are depressed for a number of reasons. But the reason why people are depressed is that they don't have the tools to navigate the hard parts of life. And so we drink or we do drugs because we don't want to deal with the hard parts of life. And we're taught, hey, here's what you do. After a hard day, come home, pound like 5 Wisers and Cokes, pound a couple vodka sodas. After you're done, load out. It's 3:00 in the morning. Have 4 or 5 drinks so you can go to sleep. Right, sleep it. It's such a natural thing, and we have stores dedicated to it, recipe books around alcohol, and I have no problem with people that drink, and I really don't even have a problem with alcohol. What I had a problem with, and I think a lot of people that gave up alcohol will say the same thing, I had a me problem. Now, what is the me problem? The me problem is that I didn't have any tools to deal with life. I was given all kinds of money, all kinds of things when I was like 28 till I was like 45. I had the world by the nuts. I didn't really want anything. I had this fucking life of entitlement. But inside, I was still that kid that moved from town to town, whose dad treated him like shit when he was a kid and all the other stuff. So I was carrying around 2 different people. Now, that duplicity is what generally leads to addiction in almost every single person. It's this inability to be able to square this vision of this person you're actually putting out to the world that can't deal with anything, and he's hiding it all. Because he's never learned to have the tools of life. He's never learned to go through something hard, never had to deal with disappointment. Or if he had, he just glossed over it and didn't bother learning from it. And it's amazing because I see a lot of guys like us in our age that get to a point where they're like, there's got to be fucking something out there that's not in a glass or on the end of a straw that will make me happy, give me this sustainable peace of mind and joy that I'm looking for. And that was my life. It wasn't about high roller, alcoholic, drug. I never did drugs, never did hard drugs. It wasn't about any of those things. It was fucking legitimate at the age of 43, legitimate misery of you are not what you say you are. You're not what people want you to think you are. And you are failing at life because you cannot face anything hard. So I just ran from shit all the time. You know, a hard conversation I would run away from. Meeting at work I didn't want to have. I would leave the building and say, I'm not fucking dealing with that, and put on this brash attitude like I was some fucking god or something. And because I never stopped to deal with the hard parts of life, because I thought that, you know, I didn't have to anymore. I didn't have to go through hard things. I didn't have to genuinely experience life like everybody else. I thought I was above that. I crashed. And what enabled me to crash was alcohol, because it's a depressant. And because I didn't have the tools to deal with life, I drank too much. Because I drank too much, I put off everything. Because I put off growing up, I woke up at 43, 44 and went, everything I've done to this point doesn't work anymore. You know how fucking scary that is? You know how fucking scary it is to wake up at 43 and go, you don't have a gig. You used to. You used to make millions. You don't. You don't have any friends. You're miserable with your partner. You're afraid for your kids to even come over because you don't think you have anything to offer them, because you are broken. You are a broken individual because you did not do the hard parts of life. You didn't suffer. You made everybody around you suffer and think that your job was more important than everybody else's job. My time was more important than everybody else's time, because that's what sick people do. So what I had to do was cut out booze, and then I had to get real, and I had to figure out a way to fucking live life happily. And that came with a number of different things. It came with psychology. It came with psychotherapy. It came with psychiatry, all the different psychs, put them all in the thing.
Put them all in there.
It came with 2 years of 12-step programs, AA meetings, fucking church basements, one-on-ones, trying to understand the book, trying to understand the lessons, trying to understand the steps, trying to live this life, because I saw these people that had something I wanted, which was just happiness. I just wanted to be a happy guy. That's all I wanted. And then the pandemic hit, and I thought, no AA, I'm fucked. Right? But before that, I started getting into philosophy, and then I started getting into academia, and then I started to learning about neuroscience. Then I started to think about the rest of my life in terms of, do you really want to put nothing in and get nothing back? And everything changed. So I go back to that first thing, which is I had a drinking problem because I had a me problem, because I was trying to fucking bring those two hurt people together with alcohol, and it doesn't work. You have to bring those hurt people together by talking about it and dealing with it, and then going through this experience in life. And here's the catch. Here's the catch for me. The catch is I've learned how to respond to this life. This life has not changed. Yesterday was still Blue Monday, right?
Yeah.
We're still in a pandemic. So when you ask that question, you know, a lot of people going through hard things. I don't even look at those things like they're hard things, because the hard things in life, fuck, they get me so excited. I get excited to go through fucking lockdowns because I want to know how I'm going to respond to it. I get excited to have hard conversations where you might have to part company with someone, because I want to learn how to be better in that. And that's why I don't look at Blue Monday like Monday. Monday was an opportunity day for me, because I had 2 meetings that were really important, and we had a great show, and I had great experiences, and I lived mindfully. I could not have done that 5 years ago. Dude, I would not be here 5 years ago if I didn't stop drinking, because that was the key to me being awake, right? And aware and self-aware. And if I didn't invest in myself to enjoy this life, to get better at this life, that is why I don't drink, and that is why I'm happy. So to open your show with 10 minutes of me fucking
that's fine.
On,
that's okay. That's it for the show, everybody. We kind of covered it. But you were touching on, like, you know, access and all the success that came to you, and then it was taken away from you, and all the rest of it. You were basically an early version of the Biebs, you know? You know, without the Timbits, without the Tim Biebs, you know what I mean? It came in hard, and then you didn't handle it well, and here we are. But here, you know, you've bounced back. I mean, your story is, to me, it's quite inspiring to come back from all of that, and to, you know, create this massive, network that you've created, which is giving people like myself a voice and an opportunity to just, you know, create. And creating for me is my therapy, from the standpoint of, like, I was talking to my wife about it last night. She's like, you really like to create. I'm like, it's sort of touring. I needed something to replace the drinking, you know, and to me, parking myself in a hotel and talking with people and learning their stories was addicting to me. And it was a big help, because I think it's daunting when you quitting smoking, quitting gambling, quitting drinking, quitting all of it. You look down the road instead of the day that's in front of you. I think to most people, and they always say one day at a time, but it really is that. I was challenged with 30 days. Once I got to 30, I didn't want to waste the 30, and then it was more. And then I got to 100 days, and I'm like, well, I don't want to.
How many people hate people like you?
Do people hate? Well, I have one of those. I have one of those faces people like to punch. So that happens. Like that's been happening to me forever. But yeah.
No, it's an you have an interesting story because it's very different than mine, right? Like mine was predicated on wanting to be a happier person that had the ability to deal with life and wanted to feel capable and confident and all those things. I was broken, like I said it earlier. You weren't broken. You were just like, it sounds like, because you and I have had several conversations about this. You woke up one day and went, "What am I doing?" Like. And
well, I was handed a substantial amount of responsibility with my job as well. So, you know, there's a journey. Well, it was everything. I wasn't feeling great. I wasn't feeling like I was present
swollen
with myself. I was
drinking. Brent looked a little swollen,
little 20 pounds, a little heavier. God damn, it was fun. Anyway, so then I even hit all the things. I mean, I became great friends with the people that run Jameson.
I know, me too.
Every time I went to Dublin, they're like, "Come on in." Last time I went there, I was like, "They're like, what?" The same thing. They're like, "You're not drinking? Here's
any of this."
They're like,
juice.
"Here's a fucking coffee cup, you loser." So, anyways, it was funny. They've been supportive, but it was just like all these things, like these goals that you set out as a drinker. You're like, "Oh yeah, oh my god, I'm great friends with the Jameson people. I've made it." Speaking of making it, I've made it as a drinker. The Jameson wants to send me a care package. That's how far I've made it. So,
dude, Jameson used to send me bottles of booze with my name on them.
Right.
Like
I've got one upstairs. I should have brought it down here. I've got one upstairs.
Several.
That was a big moment for me. I came back holding that like the Stanley Cup. Yeah. I was like, look what I did. And everyone's like, wow, look at you drinking. Yeah. It was just funny.
Well, but you know what it is like, it's fascinating the change that occurs in individuals who go from like not imagining their life without alcohol because they truly do need it. And listen, it works. Like, fuck. The reason why we drank for as long as we did and enjoyed it to the extent we did is because it fucking works. Like, if you've ever been drunk before, you know what I'm talking about. But there's 35 minutes of fun in there. I boiled it down. 35 to 39 minutes of fun. Because the chemical reaction when you get drunk literally lasts for 35 minutes. And the way that I drank is the way I drink everything. Coffee, water. It's like boom, boom, boom. You keep going. So that 35 minutes, it's gone. And I'm on my way to blackout before I know it, right? Like that was, if you boil down the experience, that's what it is. However, to your point, we are constantly under the cast mental concept that if someone takes something away from us, no matter what it is, it's wrong. It's an unjust, wrong thing that happened to us, and it's like unfair that. And then you look at yourself, because when I quit drinking, I looked at myself legitimately for a year, like, you fucking loser. Like, I'm going to meetings, everybody's telling me I'm not. I'm like, you're a fucking loser, aren't you? Look at you. Look what you've done. You've drank so much you can't drink anymore. And even if you could drink, it just turns you into an asshole. And you want it so bad because you know that it makes you feel good and you can't have it. Look what you can't have.
That's an interesting point.
Well, it's what everybody goes through when they first quit drinking if they drink too much.
You get that you feel bad that you failed at drinking.
Yeah, you fucking failed.
You failed life. You failed everyone around you. You failed everyone around you. I've got we've kind of covered off a few of them here, but I want to kind of go. Let's go with this one then, with keeping with that theme. So, can you have a drinking problem and not be called an alcoholic? Calling someone, my son was the best over the Christmas. I have to tell you something. So we were at some friends and I poured her a glass of wine. And he said to me, "No, just friends of ours. We were our friends. We were over on the island hanging out, and it was like the wine was there. They're just really close friends of ours. We're hanging out, and I was like, "Oh, hey, do you want a wine?" She's like, "Sure." So I pour a glass of wine, and my son says to me, "But aren't you a non-alcoholic?"
Because he loves you, man.
And I was like, I didn't think that non-alcoholics could drink, and I had to stop because I'm like, first, you prejudiced little prick. I got to tell you, I was like, call me a non-alcoholic. You might as well, anyway, it was funny. That's racist. Wait, is that? I don't know. It was just
that's
funny.
love though. Like,
but
it's
it was-
fascinating.
And then my kids have never really talked about it with me, but it puts you in that moment where they go, where you realize that they've been watching your every move. And that, as a pressure, as a dad, I was kind of like, I was like, there was a point where I was like, my kids are watching every single thing that I'm doing.
And have been this whole time.
So when he was like, aren't you a non-alcoholic? I thought it was hilarious. So then we talked about it later, and then he asked it again. He goes, well, can non-alcoholics have drinks? And I'm like, well, first, it's not called non-alcoholic, but good work. It's fine. I'll run with it. But number two, I said, I mean, not really. If you've chosen not to drink, you really can't. And now I've talked about my love for the non-alcoholic product called Partake. They sponsor the podcast and everything. However, there is debate whether, if you're getting out, you got to be all the way out. And having a fake beer or having a fake wine, or they make fake whiskey and all this shit now, is really just,
placebo.
And I don't know where I stand on that. I just happen to like how, and I was never a beer guy. I just happen to like how Partake tastes.
Yeah, you can dip your toe back in the fucking booze arena and not feel guilty about it.
Right. So right now it's club soda lime, but anyways, so what can you have a drinking problem and not be called an alcoholic?
I think it's, what's funny is that 12 steps, like, fucking militant, right? But it's loving. Like, it really, really is. And I do not subscribe to, as someone who, like, literally spent 2 years in church basements, like, a couple times a week, I don't subscribe to the concept that every time you walk into a room, you have to declare yourself as an alcoholic. Now, that'll fly in the face of, like, every single person that's ever been in those rooms that legitimately holds those things to be, like, they're tethered to reality, right? So that's just me. I support everybody that goes through the program. It is brilliant when it comes to touching on not being able to control the world that you want to with your alcohol, not being able to control bad things. You got to go through life. You got to deal with it. You got to be authentic. You've got to be honest. You've got to say sorry. You have to be able to live a value-filled life. And so can you have a drinking problem and not identifying as an alcoholic? It's entirely up to you. It has nothing to do with whether or not a former alcoholic or someone who drank too much thinks that you have a problem. It's not a classification. You can take a test online, and I remember I used to do it all the time because I was like, I wonder if I'm getting worse. And I would take these tests online, tests to discover if you're an alcoholic or not. And there's like 10 to 15 questions, and you're answering them, and then you click in your score, and you're waiting to see if it tells you got a problem or not.
Right.
And it says at the end of it, if you answered yes to one of these 15 questions, you're probably alcoholic. And I'm like, oh, fuck, it was a trick. You're fucking me. This is it. And then I got angry at the institution of people's stuff. Crazy shit. Like, just crazy shit. It is entirely up to the individual. Now, when I talked earlier about me having a me problem, I've morphed from, using the values of 12-step into the values of living a good life. What is true. And I love philosophy. I got into philosophy a couple of years ago, probably 3-4 years ago, and specifically love the philosophy of Stoicism. Stoicism's values are very, very simple. There's 4 main tenets behind Stoicism: courage, wisdom, temperance, and justice, right? And the really key part of Stoicism is it teaches you to manage your response to the world and everything that's going on. So when someone says they're an alcoholic, to me, that's something in the moment. Like, in that minute, you feel that you are that person. So if that's how you want to identify, great. But my response to that is, I drank too much because I had a me problem now. It's not, I don't drink because I'm an alcoholic. If someone says, can I get you a beer? I just say, no, I'm good. I just don't drink. And when they ask you why, like your point, they look at you like this, like, and they, well, why don't you drink? I'm like, I just don't like it. I mean, I drank lots when I was younger, and it doesn't fucking help you be productive, and didn't help me feel like a better person. Didn't help me be present with my kids. I could literally draw a straight line from everything bad in my life, from my weight to my attitude to my perspective, to my kids' health, to the health of my relationships, back to alcohol. Literally every single straight line. And so what that told me was, you got a problem with booze. So cleared out the problem with booze. And then I'm like, I still have these same problems, right? And that's when I got into philosophy and turned up the neuroscience to 10 and started reading everything I could from Sam Harris about, a stoic response to neuroscience. Ryan Holiday, like I literally just Tim Ferriss. I literally dove into the ancients and the idea that you could literally research how to have peace of mind to be happiness. And you know what? I found stuff. Like I invested in that time of like, what do I want for me? And so I read and I talked and I consulted and I went and had fucking meetings with people who like philosophers on values and tenets. And I read the meditations and Seneca's letters and Epictetus's moral discourses. Like I've read everything I can get my hands on when it comes to positively being able to frame the objective realities of this life and being able to go through it. So long answer to your question. I don't think that that's an alcoholic, and I don't think anybody, as described by the program, that thinks they drink too much has to identify as an alcoholic all the time. But I think a drinking problem is everybody's problem that feels like it's in the way. Do you know what I mean?
Well, and I mean, society needs labels. So we need, so you have a drinking problem, so you're an alcoholic. Well, no, I have a drink, to your point, like, you have a me problem.
I'm sad.
I wanted to know, do you need AA to get through it? I didn't do AA. I have I know you went through it. I have some other friends that are currently in the program. And it wasn't for me. I wanted to try to do it. I found this Bible. You're speaking to I found this Bible from Claire, which was amazing. Called the Sober Diaries. And it was such a big help to me. And she's such an incredible person. She actually helped me big time. You grew up with the Bible, and then you have these new books. Are they your new religion? Because you're supposed to find a higher power. Is that stoicism?
My higher power is my kids and my peace of mind. Yeah. Like that's the thing is I through the process of going to AA, I've completely disavowed religion.
Yeah, well, I was there well before that started. So, but
smarter than me.
I definitely I found this on the journey, which was great. It was like a journal of her journey through sobriety.
Your podcast with her was great.
She's fantastic.
Awesome.
Not only that, though, but there was a moment, and this might have been before. I'm trying to think if it was before we met, possibly, maybe just what I reached out to her, just privately, and was like, "I love this book. It's been amazing." And she messaged back and was like, "Hey, happy to help with whatever you need." The big moment for me through that process was I almost caved. I was in Ireland of all places, in Cork, down Whiskey Alley, and I almost caved. And I was like, "God damn it!" And I go through her book, and she caved basically at the same day. Unbeknownst to me, I right up to where she caved, and I realized our days almost matched. It was crazy, and she ended up caving. And I talk about it in this article off of on our site, about how. But she, her. I reached out to her and said, "Listen, you slipped, unfortunately, and you drank and you regretted it, and it was a big problem." That line, though, in that book was a big help to me. I actually, didn't drink because of that. I just didn't. I went for a run. It was like a 10, and most of these urges were in 10-minute increments. They hit at 10 minutes and then they go away, and you go to the gym or you do whatever. So I decided to go with this approach instead of AA. I know a lot of people have chosen AA. That seems to be like the first thing people say, go to AA, but it's like, great, but what are the options if you don't want to go to AA? Sort of how are people, what kind of tools can be used to get through it if you choose not to go to AA? What kind of support team? I've been lucky. I've had Claire, my wife, who still drinks, but she's been supportive. My friends, everyone's been on for the ride, but a lot of people don't have that support. So what do you think on that, as far as like,
it like no AA? Can you fuck, of course. I've got a friend actually, his name's Hank, and Hank is one of my very dear friends, and actually he introduced me to stoicism back when he was still drinking. And so like I'm fortunate because I've got really good friends in my life that help me as much as they would help anybody that they care about, right? And listen, lots still drink, some don't. Finding that every year 2 or 3 more guys join the stable of like, fuck, I can't keep doing this, right? Because hangovers, by the way, over 40, death, the worst. Brutal. Absolute fucking worst. Brutal. It's another reason why it's worth it. And cannabis is tremendous. Another reason why it's worth a million different options you can do. But my friend Hank and I have very different stories. Hank, he and I are roughly the same age. He's far more successful than me, and he's very, very smart, way smarter than me. And he didn't go the route of AA. He legitimately did exactly what you did. Is he dove into source material, but he's that guy. Like he's like, I need to make a change. I want to do this. What do you think? And we would talk about it. We talked a lot. And I'm nobody's sponsor. I don't even subscribe to that stuff. I'm here to be a resource to anybody that wants to be a happier person. It doesn't. And the drinking is just one of those things. It seems to be in the way for a lot of guys and girls, right? And I don't work with girls because that's like not supposed to. You're not supposed to do that. Not supposed to do that. It's called the 13th step, by the way.
Gotcha.
But I was fortunate that way to get his story and have it make a lot of sense to me. And I don't know that you do need 12-step, but I can tell you this, I wouldn't be here today if I didn't have it. I highly recommend it to everybody. And I recommend it for a couple of reasons. Is most people, when they're alcoholics, drug addicts, they walk into those rooms and the hubris that is about to meet the embarrassment is cratering for people, right? Because you're going to walk into that thing feeling like the cock of the walk. Maybe you got told to go to AA. Maybe you got told you get to be by a judge. You got to go to 12-step just to get your life. All those things. You walk in angry, resentful, full of loss because you know you can't do it again, or something bad's going to happen. Whether it's a legal thing, a you thing, a wife thing, a kid thing, whatever. Mm-hmm. And there's a moment there where you are crushed. And I think everybody should have that moment in their life. Like this moment where they are in front of a group of people they've never met. They're in a church basement in July, and it's beautiful outside. And you got to sit there for 2 hours and eat it. Eat it. Legitimately listen to these stories of people who found happiness and have a way out. Because that was what I couldn't figure out. It was like fucking being in a maze. You're like, how am I going to get out of here? It's always, and then you go back to the booze, and you're like, it's the only thing that makes me not fucking lose my mind. And all this, you're manic and you're weird, and all the other shit that comes with it. And you're thinking dumb things and doing dumb things, and you're lying, and you're not proud of yourself. Because really, in the end, you know that, right? Like everybody, and my parents. I was talking to them. I talk to them every Saturday morning. Another thing, all my relationships have changed for the better. But I talked to them on Saturday morning, every Saturday, and we were talking about it. My dad was asking me some questions about this thing and tools and how you get through life and all these other things. And it was fascinating because when I think about, and my dad's an alcoholic, right?
Yes.
And that kid that I was running away from, my dad, the alcoholic, who no longer drinks, and he's my bestie, was super rough with me. He used to beat the shit out of me, demean me all the time when I was a little kid. And then he got help and he figured out his life and all that other stuff. So that was the duplicity I was dealing with in my life, trying to bring those two guys together, right? Because I didn't want people to see that guy. I also didn't want people to see the alcoholic. And so you walk into these rooms and you're legitimately fucked. And for you to sit there and have someone come around you and put their arm around you and tell you, I was there like 8 years ago, bud, you're going to be okay. It's the kindness that you have to have in your life. And it's also this, it's a basing of your ego, because really that's what we're fucking servicing when we don't admit we have a problem, right? This 100%. Ego. And this ego, if you remember Top Gun, your ego's writing checks your bodies can't cash. Remember that one?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That is and was exactly why I drank too much. Is because I wasn't good enough. And I wanted to keep telling people I was, but didn't want to do the work. Doug Ford, great example. We talked about him in the podcast like all day today. He is vilified for a good reason because he's a piece of shit as an individual. We all know this. He's abandoned governing for the last year in the province of Ontario because he doesn't want to do anything hard, right? So what does he do yesterday during this once-in-a-million fucking lifetime snowstorm? He calls all the news stations, tells everybody how great he is, and shows everybody him shoveling snow. He never did any of that the previous 3 years. The duplicity that must be killing that man today makes me happy. Makes me happy. And that's important for people to fucking identify in their own lives. Like, that's really it, right? Like, if you think back to why you quit drinking, think about how less noisy it is today because you're not fighting with those two guys. You're not fighting an ego thing. You're not trying to convince people you're something you're not. You're not hiding from your alcoholism or whatever it is that you say you have a problem with. All those things have come together. And the reason why they came together is because you're living life on life's terms. People say it all the time. What does it mean? You're authentically experiencing life in the moment, and you're not worried about what's going to happen after that moment because you're okay. All those things have come together.
Yeah. And
That's important.
the key for me was removing alcohol. Like I went about it more organically from the standpoint of just asking my own question of like, how can I need to remove alcohol from a good time? Because as long as I've been alive, alcohol's been associated with a good time. From like 5-6 years old, it's like, go to the, when before they were carding you, it was like, go to the corner and buy beer for the parents or whatever. And every single party that the parents went to, or every, the block parties, whatever it was, there was always alcohol there every single time. And I look back on my drinking career and I go, it was involved at least for the first 10 years of my kid's life. It was in everything we went, everywhere we went, there was drinking, and we just kind of did it. And it just hit me like, I've got to remove the equation of alcohol and a good time. They can't coexist together. Like from the standpoint, well, they certainly do coexist together. What I'm saying is for me personally, I needed to take it up. I needed to say, all right, I need to be able to learn how to have a good time without drinking. And number two, I need coping that is going to allow me to, if I've had a stressful day, that double on the bus after the show is no longer necessary. So those were two things that, and you asked me earlier about it, but I had a level of responsibility that I've worked towards, but it's like, I can't be rolling into load in at 6 a.m.
hung.
And like, somebody's going to be like, well, the promoter rep was late, and that's why
Smelled like whiskey.
Yeah, like it just doesn't, like all it takes is like you're settling a show and you miss one number and the show's out $100,000 and people go, why? Well, we just want to let you know that you've been drinking during settlement. Like that was never me. I never drank when I worked, so that was, for the record, get that out. But after work, or whatever,
go for it.
On the bus or days off, and then it, I touch on, it's like, oh, we're gonna do this, and then it's like, all right, we have a thing in our business called Roadie Friday. So you do 2 or 3 shows in a row, and then you have 2 days off coming up. That night after the last show of 3 in a row, you don't have to get up for 2 days, and that you're traveling on a bus for 10 hours. Roadie Friday.
Comforting, eh?
It's a blanket. It's like, oh, Roadie Friday tonight. And our business still is like every day, Roadie Friday, or every, Roadie Friday. If you're on a tour that only plays 3 shows a week, like a big stadium tour that generally can only do 2 or 3 shows a week, every show is Roadie Friday. So it's like, right, we're 3 days before we're in London, great, Roadie Friday, and everyone works
These
super
2 or 3
hard.
wasted days,
yeah. So it just was one of those things, and not even getting wasted, but it's I equated it to in the article about how we're all given like 5,000 drink tickets when we're born, and then how we're going to choose to use them. And you can use them over 25 years at 2 drinks a week, or even 3 drinks a week, which is technically too much. And I was like, I'm pretty sure that year I had 1,000. I had 1,000 of them. And can I have 2,000 next year? And that's only 2 drinks a day. Yeah. Honestly, 2 drinks a day plus days off, really. And that who doesn't have 2 beer? Almost half the people I know drive 6 beer into them before they're go to bed.
How many times I heard, like, back when I was drinking a lot, I was like 15 drinks a week max, and I'm like, I got 17 last night.
I never quite got there, but I was honest. Like, but I see it. I mean, I can definitely see it.
You never had a half of 26?
Oh, I'm sure.
I guess you did.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It's the same.
It was almost a mission, I guess. I guess if you have 4 doubles.
Yeah, exactly. 4 doubles is 8 drinks.
That's nothing. You start with 2.
There was a time. I used to look forward to getting shit canned. Like, I used to have conversations with guys when I was on the radio. It was like Friday, get to the station, like, fuck, only 8 more hours till we're blackout. It's like 6 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning. Like, I look forward to not being present in life.
Yeah.
And it was.
Well, that's the escape, right?
That's the shame. That's the shame of the whole thing. That's the thing that catches up with you, because when you're not present in your life, you know it. You're a bad person when you do bad things, right? And I'm not saying drinking a lot is a bad thing, but I'm saying when you realize that it's a problem and you got to figure it out, you know it. Everybody does. Like if I asked you this question, listen, when you quit drinking, did you like that guy better and how he operated, or do you like this guy better?
My patience, me personally, I like this guy better. But from people in general, to answer that question, my patience level is gone. So as far as like the standpoint of like, you know, I don't know if people notice it as much, but the same 25 conversations happen 3 times a week. You remember like last week when we fucking blah, rah, rah, and everyone's like, oh, that was gross. Tell that story, Dean. Tell that story about the fucking time.
I don't know, man. I only remember half of it.
Yeah. Was it you? And what did Roberto Alomar do to you? Yeah, you told that last week, but tell it again. And then I'm like, no. I'll literally like, I'll give everyone the first, I go in on the Monday and they better not be talking about it Wednesday. And if they are, I'm out. Like, it's just I'll still go to the bar. I have an expense account. I got to take the bands out. I got to take the people
out. It's the normalization of it, though. Like, we're talking about our issues. Like, I don't think alcohol is a problem. I don't even necessarily think I have an alcohol. I know I don't have an alcohol problem now because I don't even think about it. Like, I've got no anxiety when I drive by a liquor store. I've got, like, if it's a long weekend and I don't have booze, I could care less. I'm in it for life. I want to experience my life. I didn't want to do that. If to a man or a woman with a drinking problem, if you ask them about experiencing life, they're like, life sucks. Life's hard. I can't do this without alcohol. Think about that for a second. Think about being altered because you can't deal with life. What does that tell you? It goes back to the same thing, Brent, right? The same thing, which is like, you're not geared for life. You got to get geared for life.
And it's ingrained. I mean, it's really tough. You have to deprogram yourself.
Oh yeah.
Everyone does. If everyone that I know, I got no problem with alcohol. I pour drinks. I got no problem with it from anybody that drinks a single day. That's not even the thing. And I touched on it like earlier, but when I did write the article, a lot of people were afraid to write on my wall. I got a lot of internal, like just on my Facebook wall. Like I turned off the comments on that actually, because I on my Facebook, because I didn't want it to be, but I didn't want it to be one of these rah, like, way to go, Brent. I was like, hopefully this will help you. And that's where it's going to lead. So that's where I started getting
very stoic,
a few more comments. But on like Instagram, when I put it up and things like that, on people and Twitter, they reached out personally. They never I didn't really get a lot of comments like that. It was more like, hey, I got a problem, or I don't know how to get through it. And I discovered this community through not drinking now, where I either go searching for them, or at the very least they find you. Because once it kind of gets out there that you're not drinking, then everyone kind of finds each other.
Yeah. Because they want to know how you did it.
Right. But they also find other sober people on tour, and then you kind of become a mini traveling AA, where you're like, how did you get through it? How did you get through it? And it's very therapeutic actually touring with other sober people, because that's where coffee entered my life, which turned into a podcast, and here we are. So, it's sort of
this is the experience of life. Like let me take you through what you just said.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me take you through what you just said. All these you put out this story about this life experience that you want to share with people. You're afraid of what's going to come back because there are so many people struggling. Yeah. So you turn off the comments because you don't want to upset certain people, right? Because it's fucking serious. Oh, I like this. Where's this come from?
Well, this is the chill mix that we're putting on as you're describing me right now. So go ahead.
Oh, okay. I'm describing chill Brent.
Yeah, that's right.
So you decide you're not going to drink anymore, and you're better for it, right? You're present, you're happy. But when you put that article out, what were you worried about?
What was I worried about?
Yeah, why'd you turn the comments off?
Oh, because I didn't want to make it about me.
Exactly.
Per se, even though I wrote an article about me.
About you.
But what I say, but I really, what I hate, what I've really start hating. I think you touched on this, like when a celebrity dies, everyone piles on like, this is me and Bob Saget. I mean, I've never spoke about Bob Saget, but this is us 45 or 14 years ago. And he, whatever. And this is me and Betty White. Like, Betty gets a pass. Everyone should post something about Betty. But I'm just saying, when someone goes, and it's the same, I kind of like, I go a little nuts with the, oh, look at me.
Yeah, I hate it too.
And
I can't stand it.
I like I'll make comments like, I kind of use Facebook as a traveling journal now. It's like, all right, checking in here and I'm flying to here. I'm flying to Vegas, and it's like, and then you get the comments like, hey, I'm in Vegas. People you didn't know. So I find Facebook for me as a traveler, and it's actually pretty useful from that side of it. But I wanted that article to actually just be like, live on its own and say, it is about me, but I don't want this to be like,
you wanted to share your journey with people, right?
Great job.
Because it's such a hot topic.
Yeah.
You were consternated about the whole thing. Like, you're like, oh fuck, maybe we should disable the comments. And then and there's another reason for it, is that we were in those spots where we would see those articles and go, I'm not reading that.
Mm-hmm.
I know that was my friend, but what is that going to say about me if I read that and I identify with anything in it?
Oh, it's
right.
It really, and that's I think the biggest thing about this is people see themselves within you, or they kind of, I don't want to read that because I know what that's about, and I know I'm going through.
It's like it's like a diagnosis you don't want to get. You're like, fuck, I don't want to diaggnose myself through Brent's article, and I'm afraid that Brent's going to tell some stories. Yeah,
and fuck that guy. Like he's never coming out again. But we want to go on his podcast.
Why do people do that? Like, why do people do that? Why? And it's the same thing. They're doing what I did, which is I'm running away from this as fast as I fucking can.
That's
and if
the next question.
You're running away from dealing with that, that's a problem. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's the next question. Like, why do people, in the final question, at least on this thing, because I'll let you go to your ribs, but why do people, give up trying to quit drinking? Or, on a side note to that, is it easier to just keep going? Like, where is that moment where they go, I really want to stop, but man, that's a lot of work. People don't want to either put into work, or they feel it's daunting, which it 100% is daunting. Because when I started, it was 30 days, and I'm like, okay, because everyone and Lindley talked about it on the network about like the internet fads. Yeah. About no drinking here, no sober
dry
January,
dry
January,
February,
all that stuff. And I'm like, isn't it conveniently placed that people don't drink in November and January so they can get fucking shit canned in December? Because that's when all the Christmas parties are. So it's kind of like, I'm not drinking in November. Okay.
But dude, I know a lot of guys that are really happy. You asked the question, why do people try to give up trying to quit drinking? Sorry. Why do people give up trying to quit drinking?
Mm-hmm.
It's different for everybody. I have a couple of friends that are like the 6 to 10 beer a day guys. Don't drink. Lachlan's one of them. My buddy Dave's another guy. My buddy Chris is another guy. They're perfectly happy.
Totally.
Perfectly happy people. They're trying to get better at life. They just like to have a few beers every night, right?
Right.
And do they get drunk monthly? Sure, I don't care. Whatever. Fuck, they're happy people. Yeah. That wasn't my story. My story was, the more I drank, the sadder I got, and I'm like, I can't fucking do this.
That's a great point. That's a great point, because it's everyone's individual journey.
Yeah.
And so like anyone that can, it's funny. You said earlier about when you go into AA or something like that, you look yourself in the mirror and you're like, I've failed at being a drinker. Right. And so that on the same side to that, the people that can do it and do it well, and have no issue, you know what I mean? Like my partner in crime, Chris, he's never been a big drinker, but I mean, he's like, he's never been that guy that's needed 20 drinks. He's always like, I can get, 2 drinks, 3 drinks. He's
20
fine
joints,
with that.
though. 20 joints and he's good. I don't
sure.
disagree. It's called being California sober. I'm all on that.
So that's my thing is like, kudos to anyone that can, and it was time for me to not anymore. I used up my drink tickets. So that's kind of where it was going. And, but I know it's a hard thing, and that's why I wanted to touch on this today, because we are into that 3rd week, and this is when people generally give up, or they stop, and they don't have the tools to push through. I totally get it. Yeah. And they
focus on the wrong stuff. Like, I think if we go back to, quitting, trying to quit, and quitting, trying to quit. And why do we quit things? Because they're too hard. Yeah. Generally speaking. Right. So if you frame this whole thing, if you're one of these people, you listen to this podcast and you're like, maybe I've got a drink problem, there's only one way for you to tell, and it's not a test, and no human being can tell you that. No other person can descend from the clouds and go, you're cured. It is all what everything is according to the laws of the universe. The more work you put into being a better human being, the happier you're going to be, right? So if you don't want to be that person, I desperately wanted to be a happy person. That's the truth. And so I did everything I could to uncover what that looked like and where I was, and I had to be honest about where I was, and what I wanted out of this life, which I had never done in 44 years. That was the scary part for me. It was literally the first time going into that room. It was the realization in that moment that I said everybody should have, that your best thinking for 44 years brought you there. And like it was almost like I said to myself, I was fucked for 44 years. Like I did this wrong for 44 years. I've been happy like this for 44 years. Yeah. And there's a lot to unpack.
You started drinking when you were 1? Is that?
No. Like I was never as happy as I am now because I've never had the perspective that I have now, that life is about managing your response to this world. It's not about fixing it. Life is about managing my expectations to this world. It's not about enforcing my expectations on others, right? That I wouldn't have realized had I not gotten into philosophy. I would not gotten into philosophy and not gotten the help I needed to be able to do that investment into myself, to understand the work involved in being a happy person does not escape anybody. It's not in shrooms. It's not in pot. It's not in drugs. It's not in booze. It's not in sex. It's in, well, sometimes, but it's not like legitimately sustainable peace of mind and happiness where you wake up in the morning, you have no dread, you feel great, and you want to do things moving forward. I hadn't felt that for 20 years. Like 20 years.
It's quite a feeling. It's quite a feeling.
I would wake up every morning. I'll tell you some stories. I would wake up in the morning towards the end of my drinking career, and I would just cry. Like, cry that I had to do that day. Cry that I was going to fucking put up with my now ex-girlfriend's bullshit. Cry that I would have to go and do just like enormous pussy shit. Enormous, right? And the only thing that would make me feel better when I was standing in the shower, like literally begging this invisible God for help. That's what I did back then. God help me. He's not there.
Well, he sent you to AA.
Well, no, I did. I went there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was me. No one else went there. And I did the work, right? And these things are available to everybody. It's not like, I don't believe in divine intervention and all that bullshit. It's literally you do the work, you set your expectations, you get through life and try to enjoy all these moments and try to respond to this life. But my point was this. I'm standing in the shower. There's one moment of crying and I'm hungover again. And I'm like, God help me. And the only thing that made me literally feel better, what do you think it was? Knowing that I had a bottle of booze in the house that I could go and have a drink at like noon, and that feeling would go away because it does work. Numb. But then, you do that again. And I used to call it the circle of booze, Brent, where you're in this circle of booze. It's like a hamster wheel and you're like, fuck, boom, 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 boom. That's not life to me. That's not how I should want to live my life. It might be good for some people, but it's not how I wanted to live my life. I wanted to be present. I wanted to be loved. I wanted to love. I wanted to experience selflessness. I wanted to get rid of ego. I wanted to be able to have someone say, hey, Dean, why did you do this? And for me not to go fuck yourself. Don't question me. Like literally that's how I was. Yeah. Right. And that's entitlement. And it comes with all kinds of really terrible things. But in the end, I knew I was a bad person. So that was my story. Briefly. I mean, we 53 minutes. We were going to do 20. I like this though. That's my story. And you know what? It's everybody's story. It's not about labels. It's not about you being a bad person. It's about that hurt dude or chick going, is two people here that I can't figure out. Yeah. And I can't keep hiding it. I got to deal with it. And unless you're willing to make that investment to deal with the you problem, you're just going to do the same thing over and over again.
Most people that I know that have gone down this path and tried to, and get through this and got sober and don't drink anymore, or came out of it and maybe started again, but had a different perspective on it and drank less or whatever it is. It started with that initial, get rid of it, power through it. And certainly feel better. And if you're listening to this or watching this, I'll put up some stuff in YouTube in the bottom, and I'll put up, some stuff in all the script about where you can go for different help if you don't want to go to AA or various things like that. BetterHelp is a great source for people, and all these different things. So we'll do that. In the meantime, you've bounced back magically, created this incredible network. Let's tell our friends listening and watching about that, because it's on fire right now.
Yeah, deanblundell.com. We like it. We enjoy it. We needed a place for people to come and feel productive. Those are my best stories, by the way, about this whole thing. It's not. I think when I started this, I was still drinking, actually. Like, it was like one of those. Like,
you're not too far ahead of me. I was 3 years. You're 4 and a bit. So
yeah,
we just connected after that. Yeah.
I'm not precluded from doing the work. Nobody is, right? And this is just, the next thing we do with our days. I still enjoy building and creating, and I enjoy it more with other people. This isn't about me. It's about everybody. And the fact that we can do this and maybe make a little money at it down the road is incredible. But more importantly, I don't feel the same way I did before. I think that this is just an extension of what's next for people. And I can tell you this is that, what are we, 100 podcasts and 30 bloggers and millions of page views. Nice, really nice, cute, great, all that stuff. I'm happy today. Because I know I'm not precluded from doing the work that everybody else has to do, and I do it. And I feel a great sense of pride there. But more importantly, I'm really happy because my story here is amplified by other stories like yours here, and the support that you've gotten and what you've gotten the chance to do and how you've grown from it, how you've responded to it, how I've seen James DiFiore respond to it, giving up alcohol and hard drugs and becoming incredibly productive and changing his perspective in life along the way. Those are the great stories. That's what we should be here for. We should be here for each other because there's no greater fruit in this life. Marcus Aurelius, Stoicism. Sorry, I'm going to drop it on you right now. Marcus Aurelius, the only true thing I really know. The real fruit of this life is being of good character and acts for the common good. That's it. That is all we have in this life, because we're all going to do one thing. We're all going to die.
So make the most of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Why speed up the process? That's my thing. And why speed up the process? I mean,
we haven't talked about the terrible health benefits of being an alcoholic either.
Get to that on the next round table. Okay, Dean. Well, you've been a big support of me, and giving me a platform, which I really appreciate. Your phone's always on, and making time to come on my pod and
it's awesome.
Chris and I's pod to come and talk about it. Hopefully, we can do this again down the road and dive into some further stuff. One thing I want to recommend to people is there's a really, really, really great episode that Dean did. I think it was last year with Neil Morrison. To me, it was one of the best interviews I've ever heard. I've known Neil for a very long time. He's very integral part to the early part of my career, big supporter of me. And my cousin worked at Edge 102 way back in the day and brought me in to that camp. And you pulled something out of him that I've never heard him be able to do before. And he also pulled some stuff out of you. And it's an amazing story, but Dean bouncing back, Neil recognizing what was going on. One of the most crucial comeback / getting sober, cleaning up your life interviews I've ever heard. And I want everyone to go check it out. And I'm going to put it in the feed to check it out. It's a very, very great interview. I wanted to cover a quarter of that today, but we did what we could. So I appreciate it.
Can I just say this too, Brent? Thank you very much for thinking of me and bringing me on. And I want everybody to take it easy on themselves. It's the human race, man. We're all in it. We're all going in the same direction. If you are struggling, go and talk to people who have answers. That's the most important thing. It's not about going to AA. Might be. It's not about changing your whole life right now and cutting off all the good things in your life. It's about taking it easy on yourself. You're doing better today than you were yesterday. And if your goal is to be a happier person, do that work. Do the work, because the work's actually fun. You start going, oh my God, I read the other day, we suffer more in imagination than reality. Epictetus' moral letter said that. I can't remember the verse. We suffer more in imagination than reality. And that was in reference to this one thing that I struggle with. Why, when people do things, do I get so fucking worked up that I act like an asshole? Well, because we choose that. We allow that to happen.
Yeah.
And so if you choose to respond to this thing in your life, whether it's booze or drugs or sadness or depression or anxiety, whatever it is, choose to respond to it by being kind to yourself. That comes in a couple of different forms. One is relax.
Mhm.
Number two, go and talk to somebody. There's a bunch of people out there that have answers that you don't clearly. So go and do that. And then three, put words into works. The things that you're hearing about, practice them. Practice being a good person. Practice being humble. Practice being kind when it's really hard. Love people when it's the hardest. All those things, they continually will make you a better person. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you'll be like this. Oh, I'm happy so I don't have to drink or do drugs or fucking not be present.
Getting happy is everything. What's that old soap opera? We got one life to live, right?
Oh, I've never watched that.
Well, it was on just after One Day at a Time.
The Jeffersons. We're moving on up.
Moving on up. Married with Children. Yeah. Anyways, all the good stuff. I appreciate the time, man. That is Dean Blundell. That is the Brenton on Tour podcast for another week. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. And again, I'll if you want any help or anything, I'm going to put some stuff in the pod to check out. Check out all the pods on deanblundell.com. And check out brentonontour.com, as well as my other show, Kids on the Escalator podcast with my good friend Chris. That is the Brenton on Tour podcast for another week. Join me next week. Making It Series is coming back. Thanks, everybody.